So to completely rest within yourself, completely come to the doing needs to come to a stop, but you cannot make that stopping into a doing, because then, okay, I need to stop my doing mode. That's more doing. Can you speak about how to be in this world with this constant push for connectivity on the internet without feeling that being present is another thing to do? You can make a list of things to do, answer emails, check Facebook, make these 4 or 5 phone calls, write the report, call your stockbroker, therapist, whatever. And number 7, be present. Yes, it's a good question. Being present isn't something, although sometimes when we talk about it, it sounds as if it were something that you do. In the same way that when people meditate, many of you probably have a meditation practice, and there's that sense that, okay, now I have to do my meditation. It might even be on your list of things to do. But the very idea that you are now doing a meditation can be an obstacle to doing an actually effective meditation, because you're still doing something. And so even while you sit and whatever the technique is, it could be that there's still that sense of doing, and even there could even be a remnants of stress there, because you're doing, but you also know that there are many other things that you still have to do, but now you really have to do this meditation. I'm doing it. Don't disturb me, I'm doing it. I'm trying to do a meditation. I'm trying. But I have so much on my plate to... So the very sense that you're doing something can be the obstacle, because we could say that meditation, or being present, is the realization of being. That's always already there, but just not realized. So it's not doing at all. It's the other dimension, in which there's no doing, but there's being. And that is the fundamental dimension. Ultimately, there can be no doing without being. Being is the unconditioned consciousness. So to completely rest within yourself, completely come to the doing needs to come to a stop, but you cannot make that stopping into a doing, because then, okay, I need to stop my doing mode. That's more doing. But if your approach is just be with what is completely, nothing to do, nothing to achieve, nowhere to go, just being here, aware of whatever appears in that space of awareness, and, if possible, and it is possible, aware that you are aware. That's it. So there's no doing. So you've gone into being, realized being. It was always there and is always there. It's just overlooked continuously because of a certain state of consciousness in which the thinking mode has become so overwhelming that you have lost touch with the deeper dimension within yourself. Now, when I say lost touch, does that imply that once when I say you, I mean humanity, or you, does that mean that once you were in touch with that dimension, perhaps you were in touch with that as a baby until you started to think? But you weren't, if that is the case, you were in touch with it unconsciously, you didn't know it. It was a natural state. But it seems that if you go back into prehistory, humanity, in many traditions and ancient civilizations, there is a myth of the golden age. Once we had that. In the Old Testament, it's written of as paradise or the Garden of Eden. And there are other myths from different parts of the world, including India and so on, of the myth of a very distant past when the suffering wasn't there, the unhappiness wasn't there. It was the golden age. Is that just a story, a wishful thing? Or is it some very distant memory of a different state of consciousness? And I would suggest that it is a very distant memory of something that we kind of lost. That's not absolutely correct word. But it does not mean that those ancient humans in prehistory necessarily, well, we know very little about anything that goes beyond 3,000 years ago, and that's little. But it seems that humans lived in connectedness with the source because the mind had not yet started to produce thoughts, or only very rudimentary thoughts. And they were still able to rest in the being, in the same way that a cat or a dog, I'm using those two because many of you have observed them, because you have lived with them, when they rest completely. And you can become, if you contemplate a cat at rest, it can help you to actually become still, or a dog, and to go completely, even if they're not asleep yet, they're just some years ago I saw a movie, I think it was called 1 Million Years BC. It's just a ridiculous title, as if 2,000 years made a difference in 1 million years. But it was called 1 Million Years BC, and you saw these transitional beings between animal and human. They're already walking, and they're already producing certain sounds, but not yet words, or just very rudimentary sounds that are beginning to represent things. And then they got into a fight between two tribes, still making partly animal-like sounds. And then the fight comes to an end, a few get killed. And in the evening they sit around the fire, and it's done very well. I don't know if the rest of the movie is any good, but I just remember that particular scene. They sit around the fire. They have discovered how to make fire. That's an amazing thing. And they sit around the fire, and instead of talking, because they haven't got language about what just happened an hour ago, they just sit, and they're completely just at rest. They sit around the fire and they all go, No nervous excitement left because it's not being kept alive by the mind and the memory. So they're rooted, again, they return, they're rooted in being. And that's every animal is more deeply connected, has still a deeper connection with being, but it's an unconscious connection. It doesn't know anything else. It's a natural state. And it's quite likely that humans once had that in their evolutionary journey. And then they started to think, which wasn't a bad thing, it was an amazing thing that they began to think. That was just associated with the creation of language, of course, also. And that's an amazing thing. When they discovered they could produce certain sounds to represent things. Amazing. And then they could produce sounds to represent activities. And then they began to realize they were having these sounds in their head too. They were beginning to hear thoughts in their head. And some anthropologists believe that, not everybody agrees, they believe that at that time humans mistook the arising thoughts as gods talking to them. So they heard their own thoughts and said, "Oh, what do you want me to do?" Kill that neighboring tribe. Okay, you must kill them. And then perhaps the first time a few humans experienced sleepless nights. And that was just the beginning. But it was an amazing evolutionary step forward. In all, the entire civilization, many civilizations arose out of that, an amazing thing. But there was a huge price to pay. There's always a price to pay in this world of opposites. There was a huge price to pay for that. And we all know what that is. It's loss of connectedness with the source. You are alienated from the source, unhappy.